"What the hell is going on here?" Hugh exclaimed. Adrian lifted his hands up. Now, I'm sure you're confused," he said, "but just listen to me for a moment." Hugh shouted back, "Listen to you! You murdered an innocent woman!" Adrian argued. "She was a witness. I knew you'd follow her clues and find something you shouldn't." Hugh replied with, "Find what? This place?" Adrian continued defending his actions. "It was all for a greater cause." "Greater cause? Stop. Let me tell you everything. While in the military, I saw some pretty awful shit. Eventually, I discovered some secret files. Apparently, monsters are real, and the government is using them for some sort of sick super soldier experiment. One of them escaped and murdered several people. That Sarah girl was the only survivor. I copied all the data and left without anyone knowing. I used to have a family. A daughter." He held up a framed photograph of himself with a woman and a little girl. "They're still alive, but I was presumed dead during the war. I couldn't let these creatures exist on the same planet as my family, so I won't stop till every last one is gone." Hugh stared in disbelief. Was all that true? It couldn't be, could it? He quickly collected himself and mustered the energy for one small sentence. "I'm supposed to debunk myths and legends, not find out they exist." Adrian said to Hugh, "You know, you are a very good detective. We could really get a lot done if we shared our resources." Adrian handed one of his files to Hugh. "I'll give you some time to think it over." Hugh slammed the door to his apartment. He stepped over a huge mess on the floor. He walked over to a bulletin where he had several photos pinned. He stared into them as a memory from his childhood slowly resurfaced. When he was little, his parents had died in a car crash, but it wasn't an ordinary accident. That day he swore he saw something. It had a long black tail, a pale skeletal face, and yellow beady eyes. He never told anyone he had seen it, but he never forgot either. Now, when Hugh looked at all the cases he had debunked, he realized it was all pointless. He aggressively tore them off and threw them down. He grabbed a bottle of whiskey off the floor and drank the last few drops. When it was empty, he threw it against the wall, and it shattered into a dozen tiny pieces. Isaac entered the room and noticed Hugh's strange behavior. Sir, are you okay? I was starting to worry you got arrested or something." Hugh turned to his friend and muttered, "It's all pointless." Isaac didn't quite understand what that meant. "What do you mean, sir? What's pointless?" Hugh snapped at Isaac. "Everything! 3 years ago, we started chasing ghost stories, and every single time it was a hoax. Today, I saw the truth." He leaned forward and grabbed Isaac's shirt collar. "Monsters are real, god damn it! There's nothing we can do about it." Isaac went silent. "Sir, whatever you saw, it has to have an explanation." "Well, this doesn't, Isaac." Hugh sat down. "It doesn't." Hugh seemed to calm down. "I'm sorry, Isaac. I don't know what to make of all this." "Well," Isaac said, "I remember when we first started this mystery gig. I didn't have any experience, you didn't have any money, but look at us now. Right now we know a secret that no one else on the planet knows. I'm not very superstitious, but that sounds like fate to me." Hugh closed his eyes. He smirked. He stood up and said, "You're right, Isaac. We have to take matters into our own hands." "Of course, sir." After a brief moment of explaining, Isaac asked Hugh, Have you opened the file yet? No, not yet, said Hugh. And so the pair carefully removed the seal and peeled the file open. It detailed a place somewhere in Nevada that was high in large bug sightings. Adrian had apparently tracked them down to their nest, but wasn't ready just yet to attack. The evidence is damning. Guess I should take a look. Isaac looked up at Hugh and said, and I'll stay here, to walk you through everything. Hugh walked through the forest. The file said this was close to the area where the bugs were seen most frequently. He scanned the area to make sure no one was following him. He was absolutely certain he was alone. Then, out of nowhere, he heard a voice. Hello there. What brings you here? Hugh jumped back and looked at the man. He was standing in the shadows and seemed to be wearing a long coat with a hat. Nothing, just here to appreciate the scenery, Hugh replied. Is that why? The man questioned. Or is there another reason? Hugh was starting to get creeped out. Other reason? He said. Of course. You're clearly out here to find the cryptids, aren't you? Hugh stepped back in shock. How do you know about that? The man responded. Well, they are the talk of the town, are they not? Hugh nodded and said, I suppose they are. Then the man's voice shifted to a much more foreboding tone. But are you prepared for what you might see? Hugh began to worry again. Prepared? He asked. That's what you humans don't understand. You won't find what you're looking for. You aren't ready to see what hides in the dark. Hugh wasn't sure what this guy was trying to say, but he didn't let it distract him from the mission. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, but I have to get going now. He turned and walked away from the suspicious stranger as fast as he could. The man simply stood and watched Hugh leave. A shadow stretched out from nowhere and slid up a nearby tree. Two big white eyes peeled open. Think he got the message? The man replied. He will soon understand, Ratuk. Just give him time. Hugh stopped and hid behind a tree. Who was that guy? He thought to himself. He has to be just some crazy old man, right? Well, whatever he is, he won't stop me from finding the truth. Hugh stopped in front of the entrance to an old mine shaft. My sources say this is the creature's hideout. He carefully entered the mine and slowly looked around. At first, he didn't hear anything, but as he moved deeper, that began to change. He heard faint scratches and whispering. He grew more and more tense, but tried to hide it. Eventually, Hugh came to a dead end. Well, looks like this investigation was a waste of... His thoughts were interrupted by a noise. It was coming from behind him. Hugh slowly turned around and looked up. Above him was a 10-foot bug-like monster with drool dripping from out of its mouth. It lifted a claw up and slashed forward. Hugh ducked down just in time. The claw slammed against a rock, splitting it in half. He rolled aside in an attempt to escape the creature's field of vision. It whirled around. Its long, spiked legs were faster than they looked. He grabbed a rusty shovel off the ground and slammed it against the beast's head. It toppled over and vomited out yellow blood. The bug crawled up and scurried away, leaving a trail of bloody prints. Then Hugh heard the stranger's voice yet again. It said, Now is your last chance. Turn back now. Hugh closed his eyes and shook his head. Then he followed the trail deeper into the cavern. He jumped and crawled and never stopped chasing. He was determined to catch the bug. He came to a stop at a large cavern. Across from him, he saw the bug grab something and run off with it. Hugh squinted. It's an egg. This changes things, he thought. But then, the bug leapt down a tunnel and vanished. Hugh moved closer. He looked down the endless black void. He slowly leaned forward, when all of a sudden, there was an explosion of light and color. He heard ringing in his ears. He got back to his feet and looked forward. "Holy hell," he said in awe. Beyond him was an entire town, a whole ecosystem filled with mystical and bizarre creatures. He even recognized some as cryptids he had investigated. They were all there, roaming around, living amongst each other, hidden from the outside world. Things with claws, tentacles, fur, and scales. They were slimy, creepy, spooky, and even devilish. The stranger appeared again. He spoke. "I am the blind phantom. I keep bad monsters in line and good monsters safe." "And how do I know I can believe that? How do I know I can believe anything?" Hugh questioned. "Because, when you were little, your parents were killed by a rogue cryptid." "How do you know that?" Hugh demanded. "Because, Mr. Hall, I have been looking for that same creature ever since." "What about those people killed by the government's monsters? Why didn't you save them?" The phantom sighed. "What did that day was not a cryptid at all. I fear something terrible is on the horizon. For the first time in almost 1,000 years, I worry my powers won't be enough." I need your help, Hugh Hall. Life is a fragile thing, and you hold information that could rattle entire ecosystems. What will you do with it?" At this moment, Hugh realized what his entire life had been leading to. That fateful day on the road wasn't a sign he needed to destroy the supernatural, but a call to understand it. "You know what?" Hugh said. "I'm done running. What do you need?" The phantom smiled and reached his hand out. "Welcome to the Phantom Troop." Hugh reached forward to shake his hand, but as he did, a shadow flew out and wrapped around his arm. Hugh jumped back and yelped. The shadow's face popped out and said, "Hiya there, Hughie. Name's Ratuk. Lovely to meet ya." Hugh just stared at Ratuk, still startled by his sudden intrusion. "Look, pal, if you're gonna be a full-time monster hunter, you're gonna want to get used to guys like me." Hugh entered Adrian's hideout. He remembered what the Phantom had told him. "This is something you must carry out on your own." He started grabbing and destroying evidence. He tore up photos and files. "What do you think you're doing?" Adrian yelled from behind Hugh. "I've seen it! The truth about these monsters! We shouldn't mess with forces we don't understand!" Hugh cried. Adrian scoffed and said, "Lies! Your mind is poisoned with lies!" He looked at Hugh, then looked at his crossbow hung up on the wall. "You know I can't let you walk away with this." Hugh looked at the crossbow. Yes, I do." The two stared each other down. They both waited for their enemy to make a move. Then Adrian shattered the silence and charged for his bow. Hugh tackled Adrian and pulled him to the ground. The enemies struggled against each other. Didn't take many punches for Hugh to start spitting blood. Adrian was in the military after all. Adrian grabbed Hugh by the collar and lifted him up. He punched him in the face repeatedly. Then he kicked him back to the ground. but when he did, a small blue bag fell from Hugh's pocket. He grabbed it and tore it open. He chucked the bag into Adrian's face. Salt fell everywhere as Adrian screamed in pain. Hugh muttered to himself, "Thank you, Isaac." While Adrian was distracted, he grabbed the arrow off the crossbow and stabbed Adrian in the shoulder. Then, he grabbed Adrian's computer and threw it against the wall. Adrian got back to his feet and screamed, "I'm going to kill you!" He charged towards Hugh. Hugh made a fist and swung it forward. Adrian was knocked clean out. Hugh dragged his half-dead body out of Adrian's lair. He stopped by a loose phone booth and called 911. He spoke into the phone. "Hello. I'd like to report an anonymous tip." Adrian awoke. Hugh was gone, but no cops had arrived yet. He pulled himself off the ground and silently said, "This only confirms my suspicion." He turned to his map. Nevada is the location of the cryptid sanctuary. He pulled a hidden lever that revealed a secret weapon rack. He grabbed a large gun off the shelf and said, "With this, I can finally wipe them all out." "Sorry to burst your bubble, pal, but he won't be wiping out anything today." Adrian whirled around and saw the strangest sight a human could ever see. A giant wool sock puppet with a bow tie and top hat. Emerging from underneath its body were dozens of red, fleshy tentacles. One of them was wrapped around a photo of Adrian's family. "But I'm afraid I need a little something from you first." Adrian wanted to lift his weapon, but he was too shocked by what was in front of him. "Oh, where are my manners?" The creature lifted its top hat and said, "Hi, puppet. Lenny T. Puppet, to be exact." Adrian glanced at the ground. Lenny didn't cast a shadow. He looked at the photo and said, "Beautiful family you've got. Your daughter's cuter than the buttons sewn to my mask. I just want to tear her little face off and eat it." Adrian angrily yelled at the beast, "Stay away from my family, you monster! You won't stop me from destroying you and all the other cryptids like you!" Lenny smiled mockingly and said, "The cryptids? Oh, please, they're nothing like me. Although I completely understand your hatred of them." Lenny put the photo down and started waving around his tentacles. "You discover an inferior race of savages, and all you want to do is wipe them from the face of the earth. Trust me, I get it. But your disdain for them is a bit, unearned." Adrian was stunned. What could Lenny possibly mean by that? "Unearned?" he asked. "Well, of course," Lenny replied. "That government-made freak didn't kill all those people." He grinned. "I did." Adrian's eyes widened. "You!" He was burning with anger. He charged forward, and without even flinching, one of Lenny's tentacles shot up and wrapped around Adrian, and it pinned him against the wall. Why? Why would you commit such an atrocity, just to blame it on the cryptids?" Lenny giggled, as if Adrian's question was stupid. "Because I knew someone like you would rise up. Someone like you would commit their own atrocities and call it justice." One of Lenny's tentacles slithered under his wool mask and slowly pulled out a large bronze key. "My old plan was to start a whole human-cryptid war, but this makes things so much faster." The tentacle holding the key lunged forward, stabbing Adrian directly in the heart. Lenny dropped Adrian's body to the ground. He looked at the key and said to himself, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." He held the key to the side of his head. I think I can hear him screaming in there. Then he picked the photo back up and whispered into the key. What do you think, Adri? Should I pay the folks a visit?